Good evening. Welcome to the February 8th, 10th special select board meeting in Hartland. Tonight we are discussing the articles on town meeting and any other questions related to the town meeting that we can answer. Our town manager, John, is going to step through the articles with a slideshow and answer any questions. So thank you. Again, this is not a voting evening, it's just an informational session.
Great. Okay, thanks, Phil. So we'll just walk through the articles and talk about them as we go. If there's questions along the way, either from folks online or from in the room, please feel free to ask your questions. That's what we're here for. So, Article 1, these are just the elected positions that are up this year. So we'll be voting downstairs on the 4th, as per usual. Article 2, shall the town vote to appropriate $122,000 to support the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department? Chief Sanders will provide more information on this at town meeting. This is an increase of about $30,000 from last year. And it's my understanding that this is largely related to the cost of turnout gear, so the protective equipment that folks wear when they respond to events. So again, Chief Sanders will provide a little bit more information on that, but it is an increase, which is why it's broken out from the other appropriations.
John, do you know the size of that increase?
It's about $30,000. I think it was $92,000 last year, which was an increase because we included the stipend for the fire chief last year. Article 3, shall the town appropriate $5,000 for the Hartland Co-op Nursery School? This is a new appropriation request. We do not have a ton of information on it yet. Hopefully someone from the co-op will be here at town meeting to speak to the request and the need. So that is they did get the signatures required though to get on to get the article in. Article 4, shall the town authorize the deposit of $94,673 from the highway fund hydro to the equipment fund? This is a long time kind of outstanding fund that the town has had.
The other thing is to implement a enterprise-wide capital management platform that I don't
Sorry, I was trying to identify where the sound was coming from.
How does she fit in that little box?
So when the sale of the North Heartland lake took place back in the early 2000s, there were back taxes due on it. Whoever bought it paid those back taxes. In 2006, I believe, the select board at the time authorized the money to be moved into the hydro fund. There it has sat, so we're going to move it back to the equipment fund and just eliminate the highway fund hydro. So the money's not going anywhere, it's just being moved into a pot of money that can be used. Yes?
So why?
Why? It's a good question. So it turns out that the cost of the equipment has increased dramatically in the past, over the past years. We have an increased need for, not only new and different plow trucks, but we're looking at purchasing an excavator to do the long-term ditch work that we've been doing. We've been renting an excavator for the past couple of summers. Some of our other equipment is potentially on its last legs. The backhoe, for example, has seen better days. We continue to kind of limp it along and make it work, but at some point that's going to need to get replaced. So if we move the money from the hydro fund to the equipment fund, it can be utilized for town. And when that hydro fund was also set up, there was no specifications about what it was to be used for. So it's been sitting there untouched for the past essentially 20 years. We've gained a small amount of interest on it in that time, but this just kind of consolidates everything and makes it more usable for the town. Article 4. So in October of 2006, there was a sum of $87,000 from the North Hartland Dam settlement. The minutes from that time were pretty thin. We can't really find additional information on this, so this is what we have available to us.
So you don't know what the intended purpose was?
We do not know what the intended purpose was. Article 5, shall the town vote to appropriate $3,000 to support Mount Escutney Prevention Partnership and Volunteers in Action. This is not a new appropriation request. We had previously been appropriating money or $2,000 to Mount Escutney Prevention Partnership and $900 to Volunteers in Action. They are under the same umbrella at Mount Escutney. They're being kind of run by the same folks. It's being put together with a very small increase of $100. That's why it's, again, broken out of the other appropriations. This is the big appropriation article, so this is $88,582. These are appropriations that we have done in years past. These have all remained the same. The only ones that we talked about, so again, Volunteers in Action, Mount Escutney Prevention Partnership, and the Fire Department have increased. And then there's the new appropriation request from the co-op nursery school.
And we don't expect any presentations from any of those groups. Just those groups will be answering questions should there be answers from the floor.
Correct. No, we do expect a presentation from the fire department, as we normally
From the
do.
individual
Correct.
request.
Correct.
Okay.
Chief Sanders normally gives us a recap of their year's events and speaks to the increased request.
Okay.
We do not anticipate presentations from others in the room. Hopefully they will be there to answer questions.
Okay.
So Article 7, this is the budget. Shall the voters authorize general fund expenditures of just over $2 million and highway fund expenditures of $1.6 million, of which $3,041,276 shall be raised by taxes. So this is the budget for the town. This is largely, and this will come out in the budget comments in the town report. This is just under a 5% increase over last year. If we take inflation at 4%, this is about a 1% increase from the previous year's budget. You'll see on the side there, the highway funds, even with some increases in paving and increases in equipment money being transferred out, it's a fairly small increase. You see the big increase on the general fund side. The difference is that we moved one of the staff members from the highway department to the general fund side. So Rob Ray, who is the buildings and grounds person, was in the highway department budget. He is now in the general fund budget. Job responsibilities, job duties have all remained the same. He just no longer reports directly to the road foreman. So again, there was an increase in paving and an increase in the equipment transfer out. I spoke to why we need to put a little bit more money into the equipment transfer, the equipment fund, and we increased paving $40,000 to $300,000 a year.
But people gonna know what the equipment transfer out means? Anybody here know what that means? Equipment transfer out?
So the equipment transfer out, every year we move money from the highway fund into the equipment fund so that we have that money set aside for when we need to do equipment purchases. So that's what that equipment transfer out is.
Like an equipment reserve.
Essentially an equipment reserve, but we anticipate using it on a yearly basis. Yes. And again, I think it's important to take away that inflation is the key driver behind the budget, the budget increase. The question that will come up is what this amounts to is a $21.60 increase per $100,000 of assessed value. So not $21.60 per $100,000, but a $21 increase over last year's tax bill per $100,000 of assessed value. So, anybody have any questions on that? No. Well, I mean, if town meeting goes this well, we're gonna be out before lunch. So, Article 8, shall the town vote to exempt from taxes for a period of 5 years the property at 241 Garvin Hill, which is Esquibald, which is owned by the Nature Conservancy and the New England Wildflower Association, and is used exclusively for the purpose of such organizations. So this was originally voted on in 2019 to exempt that property from paying property taxes. We should have done it last year. We got a 1-year kind of pass from the state. We need to do it every 5 years, so that's why it's on the town, why we're voting on it at town meeting again. The property is currently assessed at just over $110,000. So what we are missing out on, if we were to collect taxes, is about $1,100. So for 5 years, we're talking $5,500 in tax money that would be generated from that property. Again, I think there's a lot of benefit to the town residents use it. Folks from out of town, you know, recreate at Esquibald, so there's a lot of value to having that there. Again, you can see we passed it 2019, and every year would be just $1,110.27. So that's what we are quote unquote missing out on per year. Article 9, shall the voters authorize the elimination of the office of town lister and replace it with a professionally qualified assessor in accordance with 17 VSA, the Vermont statutes annotated, 2651. So this is a significant shift in the town. So there's been some studies and reports coming out of the legislature in the past couple of years, the big one being Act 68. Sorry, there's a couple of typos there. I don't know what happened. Outlines the need for this movement. There's also a regional trend that's happening. West Windsor recently voted to eliminate the Board of Listers. The town of Weathersfield eliminated the Board of Listers. This is not an indication of the listers that we have in town currently. There's a larger movement happening, you know, not only regionally, but across the state. And if you were to kind of read that chart on the left, the state is moving. Act 68 really talks about creating these kind of regional assessment districts and having the state do some of the work. One of the things that we struggle with is that the towns struggle with is finding qualified people to do reappraisals. So right now we have an RFP out for reappraisal. It's closing in a couple of weeks. At best, it's probably going to be 2029 before we get reassessed, and that's challenging, and that's kind of common across the state. One of the if you read the report, one of the things it talks about is hopefully if we create these regional districts, there can be an economy of scale for somebody to do reassessment work. So more reappraisal firms might be interested in working in the state of Vermont. Helen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have two. So what you're saying is we would retain the listers that we have now employed by the town, and would it be either a cost savings or a cost expense to do this?
Okay, so we would not retain the listers that we have right now. Of the two listers that we have, if this article were to pass, one would be retained for 45 days as required by state statute. The other one's term is currently expiring at town meeting. What we would do then is to rehire a part-time town employee to be to essentially serve that function of a public interface, and have a contracted assessor do some of the heavier lifting. This first year would be a bit of a challenge due to the timing of when the grand list needs to be completed. And so we anticipate kind of maybe bringing both listers back on in a limited capacity to help us through June to get that set. Then to your second question, Helen, whether this is a time saving or would it be more expense, I would anticipate it being a cost savings in the long run. We don't know exactly. You know, we've talked to some of the other towns that surrounding us that have gone through this. there appears to be a long-term cost savings, but we have, going through reappraisal in the coming years. In the first couple of years, we'll be dealing with, kind of bringing them up to speed on our system. It will not cost it, I do not anticipate it costing us more money than we currently spend on the listers, but and I anticipate it potentially saving us money in the long run.
So reappraisal is a separate issue.
Reappraisal is a
Cost
separate,
there, no matter what.
right,
Whatever we do.
right, reappraisal is a separate issue.
Right, but we'd basically be going down from what we've currently budgeted, 2 people, 2
Right.
part-time and 1 full-time, would now be 1 part-time, and then a contract with an outside agency that's hopefully less than what 1.5 people would cost.
Correct. That's the anticipation, yes.
Right, and just building on what Jim had said, I want to make sure it's clear that what we're talking about is a separate contract, not for a reappraisal of the town, but a professional appraisal to assist us with the work that goes on today with new properties or changes in properties and updating the town tax map.
Yeah.
So if anybody if a member of the public had a question, we would still have someone in the office locally to answer the questions.
Correct. There would still be a part-time person in the office, much like there is today.
Theo?
Yeah, I was just curious, how do you imagine how the road hits the road as far as the current work the listers do, going around doing site visits and following up on leads of what kind of changes are occurring in town, or administrative time to assure that building, I don't know if you call them permits or are actually adhered to. It's one thing to try and say, well, they may not, but then actually having done what they say. Who's gonna do that? How is it the cost? Savings or increase?
Right. So some of them will be done by the part-time person, in the office, and some of that will be done by the contracted assessing firm. That permit review, that's a relatively straightforward thing to do. We can share the database that we have of permits with them, where it's not a database, currently it's a spreadsheet of permits. So we'll share that with them, and when they are in town, they can do those kind of checkups to make sure that, things are going according to plan. That you didn't apply for a permit to build a shed, and you end up building a 5-bedroom house, right? So that's a relatively straightforward thing to do.
John, would you make a comment? I think it's appropriate at this time that one of the things that we, with area towns, are looking at is the concept of shared services, so that we could potentially have an additional part-time staff person that would be employed full-time amongst a series of towns that would be available to help us with some of those things you're talking about here.
Exactly.
But I think the intent is to do all the same work that has to happen,
Yes.
but just doing it in a different manner with a different resource structure.
Correct. Fundamentally, nothing will change, aside from the fact that there will not be an elected board of listers anymore. All the same work will be done. Yes.
So this will not have any effect on the ease for the reappraisal or anything like that?
It will not. It will not.
We wish it would, but it's prevalent.
Kurt, did you have a question online? Okay. Well, Kurt's hand was up for a second, but it's not up anymore. Are there any other questions on the listers article? Okay. Article 10, shall the voters authorize the select board to sell the North Hartland School building along with sufficient land for a building lot? So back in February 2024,
John, get rid of
The square.
eagle there.
this? Sorry, okay, thanks. There's a pole in my way, I can't quite see the screen. Beginning in 2024, there was a North Hartland School Committee, so town staff, a couple of select board members, North Hartland residents, met to talk about opportunities and limitations of the existing building, the old North Hartland School. We had a building inspection completed in May of 2024. There were a significant number of deficiencies noted. You know, the electrical system is quite out of date. We anticipate there being both asbestos and lead paint in the building. The chimney is in significant need of substantial repair.
Plumbing, windows.
Right, plumbing, windows.
Oil tank.
Right, where there's somewhat of a mystery with an oil tank, and the septic system.
And the ADA accessibility.
Right, accessibility issues, so
Lack thereof.
again, numerous deficiencies. We got a couple of cost estimates for repairs, both the repairs noted, and to touch on some of the other things that just came up, some of the ADA accessibility issues. The estimates were about $200,000. And so I think the decision was made by the board, and it talks about it a little bit in the North Hartland School Committee report, which is available on the website, to investigate selling the building and tearing it down. It currently exists as two parcels. So the school and the driveway on that kind of upper terrace, if you can picture the parcel, and then the hill, the sledding hill, the field, the playground, the tennis courts, those are all a separate parcel. So what we would do is investigate selling off just the upper parcel for potential housing, keeping the existing park, keeping everything as it is in place down below. Any questions on the North Hartland School article? Okay.
So the intent of selling it would be that they would take the building down?
Somebody would, we would sell it, somebody would be responsible for taking the building down and,
Or rehabbing it.
It's not a requirement.
but it's not a requirement, or rehabbing it. Correct. And in an ideal world, you know, some housing could go in on that site. It's a large enough parcel to support housing. You know, there's it ties into the existing water system in North Hartland, so that is a selling feature. Kurt, again, I saw your hand raised.
It's down now.
Okay. Okay. So that was it. Article 11 is to transact any other business proper and necessary under the warning. So those are the articles for town meeting this year. If there are no questions, we'll talk a little bit about what's coming this year and beyond. But before we jump into that, yes, sorry, your name?
Linda Genovese.
Okay.
I had a question on the article that's about all the nonprofits.
Yes.
Up to 88,000.
Yes.
It just seems that every year that gets added to it, and what investigation of the ones that are on there already that don't have to apply again once they've gone through the warning for the first year.
Yep.
How does that get vetted or whatever?
So every year when they submit their request, we ask them this year when they submit their reports for the town report, to describe what they were doing specifically for the town of Hartland, which is a change from how it's been in previous years. So, sorry, I thought I heard somebody say something. So the town report will have information about specifically how, again, Mouse Country Prevention Partnership benefits the town of Hartland, or Tri-Valley Transit, for example, how many rides potentially they serve, they provided to residents. But you're correct in that once they are on there, they kind of stay on there until they ask to not have the appropriation anymore.
Oh, they'll never ask.
That's a fair assumption.
Well, the other point that you made is all that list stays the same. The opposite is true. If I came and requested for more money,
Yeah,
then I would have to be a separate article.
or you'd have to have a different article.
That's
Right, so
fine.
that's why we see the fire department as a separate article.
Right, so your point, I think what you said is, it doesn't go up every year, because what's there is, you can't ask for more money without doing a new petition and without it being a separate article.
Well, it will go up every year because it will be 88,000 this year, and then the new ones that are warning this year
Well,
will
sure,
get added.
yes.
Pretty soon it's gonna be 100,000.
Yes.
Right, I mean, if you take them all together, it's about 100 and, well, no, it's more than that, because it's about $220,000. You know, because the fire department alone is requesting $122,000 this year.
Yeah.
And the bulk of them were 88,000, so there's just over $200,000 right there.
Yeah.
So,
Just for clarification, the fire department generally is always an article unto itself, even if it doesn't change. They're usually not in that list of nonprofits,
Right.
if memory serves me that, is that right?
Yeah.
Is the rescue squad on that list?
the rescue squad is on that list, so I can only speak from my 2 years
Yeah.
of town meeting.
Yeah,
Both years they've asked for an increase,
oh, okay.
so the rescue squad is in the list of the big appropriations though. So as we move beyond town meeting and into, you know, the rest of 2025 and beyond, we're gonna come back to the Queechee Road work and start with the second bullet there. We last year had 2 studies done on the Mill Street covered bridges in North Heartland. V-Trans undertook a study of the older Willard covered bridge, and they're continuing to work on putting together a plan for rehabilitating that bridge, which would largely be funded under the bridges program by V-Trans. We would have a small cost share, but it's great news that V-Trans would pick up the bulk of that. This is a picture of the southern bridge, or the kind of quote unquote newer bridge, which also has some significant limitations to it, both in terms of weight capacity and in terms of structural deficiencies that we need to address. So we had a study done, paid for by the ARPA funds, to identify some of those deficiencies, and we will be putting together a plan of work to bring at least the southern bridge, the newer bridge, up to a standard that can you know, handle the traffic that's going across it currently. We will continue now that the Three Corners intersection project is done completely.
Also be clear though, it's still not going to bring it up.
It is still not,
gonna be
yes,
very
I was,
okay.
yes, I
You
was
made it
choosing
sound
my-
like you're gonna.
I was choosing my words carefully, but I will be more careful. There is not an anticipation that either of those bridges will ever be able to carry heavy truck traffic, anymore. So we did.
You want to mention what we are doing today, as a workaround, which is often at best, but.
There's 2 workarounds.
Yeah.
So one, from a like a rescue point of view, the town of Windsor is now sending ambulances. They have 2 lightweight van ambulances that are rated to go across those bridges. So the structures on the north side of those bridges are being served by the town of Windsor ambulance. And that's been kind of fixed through dispatch. So Windsor ambulance is covering those. When there is a need for a fire truck or things like that, we do have an existing workaround going over Quarry Road, down through the Twin State gravel pit. Then there is a fairly passable path that larger trucks can take. There's discussions to make that path a more suitable road. The intention though is to never have it be a road that is a traveled roadway. It is an emergency vehicle access only. The town uses it for plowing, because we maintain Mill Street on the north side of those bridges, but we can't take even a smaller of the plow trucks with sand or salt on the back of it. That is over the weight rating for those bridges.
Fuel delivery.
Right, fuel delivery, things like that, yeah. Both bridges present a real challenge to the town. There's not an easy solution. What we can do though is make sure that they don't continue to deteriorate. You know, I hope folks saw in town last summer we were able to get quite a bit of paving done. So with a grant from V-Trans, we were able to get the Brownsville Road paved. We undertook paving on Mount Hunger and on Ferry Road, some of the paved section on Chute Road. So we got quite a bit of paving done. it's an expensive thing. We have more planned for this coming summer. We also, with some ARPA money, hired an engineer to give us an assessment of the paved roads in town, excluding the Queechee Road. So now we have a plan, moving forward, in terms of not just throwing money at the worst roads, but how is our money best, our kind of limited paving budget best spent? So we can anticipate seeing some paving in the future. Helen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one question about the bridges. Will the Meachams be able to get their farm equipment across those bridges?
They are not going to be able to do that, no.
Oh. Do they know that?
They do. Again, I don't want to make light of it. It's a really challenging situation for the folks who own property on the north side of those bridges. So the Three Corners intersection project is now completed. Folks saw there's no poles anymore. The sidewalks are all done. We had to make some minor changes to the sidewalk in front of Damon Hall for ADA compliance issues. All that has been completed though. So with the Three Corners intersection project being done, we'll go out to bid to get the intersection lights, which were approved at town meeting in 2024. So that project will begin in earnest this coming spring and summer. We're completing a study, getting a hydraulic study done to replace the culverts at the intersection of Densmore Hill and Jennyville. So we saw the big box culvert go in on Jennyville Road last summer. This will be something similar. This is the culvert that is right at that intersection. It's an old stone culvert. It's a constriction point for that stream. So this would be a benefit to folks on that side of town as well. And then jumping back up to the top, Queechee Road. So it's kind of the elephant in the room. We all know it needs work done. Again, last spring and summer, we had Pathways Engineering from Lebanon do an assessment of the Queechee Road. They took boring samples up and down the road on both sides to determine what exactly was happening and what is a good plan moving forward. The short answer is the plan moving forward is to probably rebuild most of the road. It is falling in because there's significant drainage issues. The material that the road was originally built on was slightly suboptimal. So
that was kind.
Well, so it's not a matter of repaving it. It's a matter of rebuilding it. It's been broken down into kind of good, okay, and bad. The select board had a lot of discussions, and I would encourage folks to stay engaged about what to do moving forward. The cost to do just the kind of bad and okay section, the medium and bad sections, is just about $4 million. So again, if we're allocating $300,000 a year for paving, that's a lot of years of skipped paving to ever get to $4 million to do that work. So that's probably not a reasonable approach. What we anticipate doing is seeing if what's available in terms of in the bond market to see what we can do to get money to do that road work as needed. We understand that it's a significant issue, but that's not this year, potentially in the fall, if not in spring of before the voters next year in 2026. But what you will see this year is the road crew out there doing some of the ditch work, replacing some of the cross culverts that go into the road that have been clogged for a long time. Just doing what we can do to stop the road from getting worse, right? What can we do now to prevent the road from getting worse so it's not $4.5 million when we have to do the work? It remains as cost effective as possible. So again, we still have a large portion of the ARPA money that was allocated to the town in an unencumbered fund balance, so which essentially means the money is available for us to do the projects that were identified both in the ARPA report and those other projects that come up that the board determines is a good use of the funding. A couple of things that have come up kind of repeatedly are accessibility options at all the town buildings. So not only at Damon Hall and the rec center, but also at the library, there are significant accessibility limitations. The lift at the library, the parking lot of the library being dirt gets really tricky in spring and in winter. There are the rec center, you have to go up or down stairs no matter where you go in that building. So we'll continue to work through those. There's some recommendations in the ARPA report to look at the HVAC systems in town buildings. As it turns out, the heating systems at both fire departments, so the one by the highway garage on Route 12 and the one in North Hartland, are in need of repair, if not replacement. So that's something that the Chief Sanders is working on getting quotes for, so we can look at replacing the furnaces in both of those buildings to make them, warm and more accessible for folks. I'm currently working with some volunteers who are associated with Hartland Community Arts to put together a townwide newsletter. So we'll see that in print. We'd like it in print form. So that's going to be available, probably on a every other month basis. We hope to distribute it throughout town, so folks can be aware of not only who's working at Damon Hall and the rec center and the library, but we have a lot of residents of note in town, and it's great to kind of capture some of those folks and some of the events that are happening throughout town. So we have a lot of things that are going on. Some big projects, the Guici Road, some smaller projects like the newsletter, but all to serve all to the betterment of the town of Hartland.
Well, I guess through the announcements of that, I'm Theo Ambrose.
Yeah.
My question is, to spin back to the North Hartland School, has the town approached or been approached by any of the interested parties for family housing in town? I'm just thinking that North Hartland is one of those rare instances where we have public water.
Right. So it's a good question. At this point, the answer is not really. That would be a little cart before the horse.
Further down the road.
Right, a little further down the road, depending on the outcome of town meeting. I think that's a very valuable conversation to have. Absolutely. Any other questions from folks in the room, the board, folks online? There was a question, is the annual town report and meeting warning available now? If not, when will it be available? The town report is not available, Sarah. The town meeting warning is available both on the website and it's posted throughout it's posted at the usual places throughout town. The town report was finalized with the printer today.
So when will it be available?
I don't know the answer about when the town report will be available.
So you had a deadline, right? They're like a 30-day deadline?
That's for posting it, not for getting the town report out.
Yeah, we're already beyond that.
Right. So folks may have noticed, we are not doing a mailer this year. If you might be used to getting a mailer with the budget overview and budget comments in the articles included in that mailer, that's not a requirement. It's kind of, there's a bit of a non-effective use of the time that we have available, so we chose to not do it this year. But if there are questions, you can contact myself. If you have questions about the articles or why things are different this year than they were in previous years.
John, will you just let folks know what the February 18th meeting is and what that's,
Sure. So just real quick, next Tuesday, we are meeting with the Planning Commission and the folks from Industrial Tower and Wireless to talk about the proposed tower up on Town Farm Road, Town Farm Hill. Sorry, I always forget that third word in that four-word road name. So up on Town Farm Hill, they will be here. We'll do a presentation. We'll have a similar kind of questions and answers period with them to give folks the opportunity to interface with them directly. Sarah.
Done, yeah, thank you for the answer. I actually had looked at the town website before I posted the question. So could you tell me where on the website, the warning is?
Well, gracious, off the top of my head, I don't know. I believe it's right on the front page under like the news and information.
It might be, it
Yeah,
could be
well,
there. It could be on the-
That's
could
where
be
I
on the
looked,
listers.
so,
Could be on the listers page, Sarah.
Yeah, well, it's there.
I saw it today. It might be the listers page.
We'll make sure that gets flagged and we'll
No,
put
I'm
it,
sorry, not listers, clerk,
the town clerk's page.
clerk page.
So if it's not readily available, it
I'm
should be-
sorry, Jim, could you repeat what you said? It's on what? The Lister
Yeah,
page?
No, I'm sorry, check the clerk's page.
Clerk's page. I tried the manager's page. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll make it more visible.
Right, yeah. I think it's on there, but we can certainly make it more visible. We're not trying to hide anything here.
Yeah, more visible would be good.
Okay. That's it for me. Thanks for coming. Thanks for,
So I had a question about next Tuesday meeting. Are we still in a public comment period now?
Yes.
So it's 60 days after they submitted the proposal?
No. So we are still in a public comment period now. There has been no application filed.
Oh, there has not been?
There has not been an application filed.
Oh, okay.
The agreement from the company is, they would wait until the public meeting on the 18th before they would take the next step. And perhaps they won't. So,
Doing this, see which way the wind blows.
Lister's page.
Okay.
She still can't.
Yeah. If there's no other questions from folks online or in the room,
Thank you.
all right.
thanks for coming, yeah.